C15 Facebook page. Thank you so much for joining me and Carla this morning as we talk about everything that is happening in education. And, we were just chatting, Carla, before this started. There is certainly plenty to talk about. We've got a big week coming up, starting with the fact that we have those benchmarks coming out tomorrow, the updated benchmarks from the state. And we're hearing that Maricopa and Pima could possibly meet the benchmarks for hybrid learning. And so that's a big development that just came in about an hour ago, but certainly lots to get to. Carla, what is standing out to you so far as we're in this week and kind of looking ahead?
I think that it's that momentum, right, of parents feeling like we're getting closer to that in-person learning time. I know that, for example, my kids at our school, we have been told that 9/8 is the date. And so on Facebook yesterday, I put it out to a group of friends out here in the East Valley, and a whole slew of emails and messages came out saying that parents are excited, parents are ready, kids as well are excited and ready. And then I gotta give the opposite side, which is nope. That was one of the comments on that feed, was not ready, not there yet. So Danielle's still feeling like a lot of either full on yes, yes, yes. And then you definitely have your folks that are saying, no, not ready, not yet. And you and I were talking about exactly that with the different areas of the valley. What you have out in Mesa or maybe Scottsdale or maybe Chandler, you really don't have in another set of area, like maybe a Tolleson school district or an inner city school district where their metrics are looking very, very different. Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, well, and I just want to, I'm going to kind of look off to the side here as I pull up my email, because we've been keeping track of the districts who were aiming for that post-Labor Day start. So we've been trying to stay updated on, okay, who's actually going back to in-person and who isn't. And it kind of reflects that geographical difference that you're referring to. So I'm just going to pull up my notes over here because there's too many for me. And let's be honest, there's so much going on, I can't remember anything anymore. So as far as the districts that we know are confirmed as returning September 8th, we've got Gilbert Public Schools. They're going to start with their hybrid option, and then they'll move to that full-time in-person at the end of September. But that hybrid is, where you have kids on campus a couple days a week, and they're staggered days and trying to limit the amount of kids who are coming back to campus initially. Higley District begins their in-person. They only have an in-person and an online option. Peoria Unified is moving to stage 2 of their reopening plan, so they'll be welcoming back different specific groups of students. So maybe students with some higher needs and some of those other specialty courses. Cave Creek Unified decided Monday night, the board voting actually against the superintendent's recommendation there. They will start their in-person also on the 8th, and they are only offering an in-person or an online option. Scottsdale Unified met last night for several hours, and I'm still trying to lock down the exact update, but I believe they did not end up making a decision, that they're going to end up sending another survey out to parents to gauge what the community wants. They did discuss at length a hybrid option as well, kind of similar to Gilbert's, where they'd lump students into 3 different groups and alternate what days they're on campus. But again, to my knowledge, as of now, no official decision from Scottsdale. And then tonight, Chandler Unified is going to meet, again, one of our largest districts, and they're going to be talking about potentially resuming in-person learning. The districts that had hoped for a Labor Day start who have now decided to postpone, Glendale Union High School District, Glendale Elementary District, Washington Elementary School District, all 3 of those saying the benchmarks just aren't where they need to be, and there are still too many unknowns. And then also Paradise Valley Unified, kind of there in the middle, saying that if they hit the benchmarks, it's still going to take time for them to prepare for in-person instruction. So the soonest that they would likely go back would be early to mid-October. Meantime, we've got Mesa Public Schools, our state's largest district. They are going to use the data from tomorrow to determine if they're going to start their modified in-person learning on September 14th. Again, that's where students are on campus for certain days out of the week, 2 or 3 days, and then they learn remotely at home. And then Kyrene announced that it will start phasing students in, starting with their youngest learners, so kindergarten, first graders, starting on September 17th, and Dysart saying they're going to start their phase in on September 14th. So a lot of updates. I know that's a lot of information. We're trying to compile them into like one list, but I mean, when you hear that, that's a lot of school district. That's hundreds of thousands of students potentially going back to some form of in-person learning within the next 2 weeks, which is a really big deal for families, for communities, and also really for the county at large, because once you have more people congregating, you could see more case numbers and concerns rising over that. So certainly a lot set to happen here in the next couple of weeks.
A lot happening for sure. I know I'm in that Chandler area, so I know we're going to be watching what Chandler Unified is doing. I know I saw a comment in here about Roosevelt School District. So I'm on a mission to find out for the Roosevelt School District. Someone said it hasn't been mentioned. We will look that up and bring that to you throughout the...
Oh, Carla? Okay, I think Carla's connection may have frozen, but I'm going to take a note here, and I'm going to put us down for Roosevelt. I will call and check on them. I believe that they were slated to not go back until fall break, so we will check on Roosevelt. And then also I saw that Deer Valley was mentioned on here. As of now, Deer Valley, I actually just got an update from them yesterday or the day before saying that they've decided to stay remote for now. They're sending out another survey to their families, and they're going to go from there. So we are doing our best to stay on top of all of the school districts and what's going on there. But please comment on the side so that we know, what districts haven't we covered, and that way we can make sure we pay special attention to that. Carla, you mentioned, being kind of in the Chandler area and keeping an eye on Chandler. I believe also that Diocese of Phoenix Catholic schools are going back on September 8th, I believe.
Yes. So with the Catholic Diocese, they have roughly, I believe it's about 17 schools throughout the Valley. I know they've got a brand new high school out in the West Valley, St. John Paul II. We actually have some friends attending that school. The high schools are going to be doing the hybrid program, some online and some in person, but they're not really doing anything full 5 days a week in person as far as the high schools are concerned. So we're talking Seton High School, we're talking St. John Paul, and so some of the Central Phoenix high schools as well. But the elementary schools, so the K through 8, those are going mostly 5 days a week. So again, some of them are doing a hybrid 2 days on, 3 days off situation. But that begins for the entire Phoenix Diocese on September 8th. So that is next Tuesday that their kids will be going back to in-person learning. I've talked to a kindergarten teacher out at St. John Bosco in Ahwatukee, and she said that off the record, and not official numbers, but they've had about 90% of their school say, yes, they're coming back for in-person learning. So that overwhelmingly a high number of parents in that private school, as would be expected. I know I've heard of other private schools, Valley Christian's, gone back to in-person. Gilbert Christian is in person. So a lot of these other Christian schools, Christian faith-based schools, are doing in-person learning already. The Phoenix Diocese erred on the side of caution, and back in the beginning of August, they said, we're not going to open up for in-person just yet. We're going to wait. And then it seems like now the diocese is ready to move forward. And again, they're still offering you to stay virtual if that's what you prefer. So I know that at our school, that's been the mention to us, is if you prefer to be online, we're definitely going to be able to fulfill that.
Yeah, and we of course can't forget that we already have some other charters and school districts. Queen Creek School District has been in for 3 weeks now, going on 4 weeks, about 3 weeks. We also have the ALA charter schools back, Legacy traditional charters. I believe Great Hearts Academies are welcoming students back, today, tomorrow, and in the next few days. So we do have a lot of students who are already in those pretty much full in-person models. Of course, students do have the option to stay online, but we do have quite a few schools back and up and running. And speaking of Queen Creek, yesterday we received a letter from a parent in that district who has a child at Eastmark High School. That's their newer high school. It's actually the high school that we got access to a couple of weeks ago to get a look at some of their safety protocols that were in place. And that parent got a letter saying that there was a possibility that their student had been exposed to COVID-19 back on either August 26th or 27th. So that was, last week. And this was interesting because in the Kyrene and Peoria districts, it listed out, your student is required to quarantine. This letter didn't say that. It just kind of listed out, here's what COVID-19 is. Here are some things to keep in mind. Here are some symptoms to watch out for. I did reach out to the district to ask more information as far as, how many students received this notification, and just kind of got a generic response that they're working with the county health department and notifying all those who need to be notified. But that's one of the first confirmed cases that we've seen since school started down there as well. And of course, that brings up the whole issue of reporting cases and transparency. And, some parents from Eastmark were nervous that they hadn't received a letter. And, we said, well, they're only required to notify those who may have been exposed. But still, the parents were saying, the fact that my child's on that same campus, what if they crossed paths on accident? And it just brings up a lot more anxiety for an already kind of emotional situation for a lot of people. So something we're keeping an eye on for sure, especially as more and more districts head back to school.
So, I've been seeing the comments, and specifically about Queen Creek. Someone earlier asked, they didn't meet the benchmarks, but then they went back to school. Oh, Samantha, there we go. So why is Queen Creek only one that opened despite not even meeting the benchmarks? I want to reiterate, the benchmarks were just guidelines. They weren't necessarily anything that was going to be enforced by either the Department of Education or by Governor Ducey's office. Or by the state health department. And so we want to make it clear that those benchmarks, if you are a district that whose school board decides that it's time to go back in person, and that the trend in the numbers is coming down, and the board decides, as a united effort to open up the school, they definitely can, even though those benchmarks may not be all there. And there's 3 of them: the percent of positivity per 100,000, the number of patients coming into the hospital with COVID-like illnesses needs to be below 10%. And then there's one other benchmark that, of course, I can't remember off my head, that is also related to positivity. But those together, if they're in the green, then you the benchmarks. So far, Maricopa is only meeting 2 out of the 3. And we know that there's 4 counties in Arizona that meet all of those 3 benchmarks, Apache being one of them, Greenlee being another county that meets those benchmarks. And there's 2 others that also meet the benchmarks. But again, it's not an end all be all. You don't have to have those benchmarks met in order for your district to open up, just so you know that, parents.
Yeah, and I think that was some of the controversy surrounding it in the beginning, especially was, if there's no enforcement behind this and no oversight really, then what's to stop districts from opening? And as we saw, it real thing. They can't open. They're hoping that they put those safety mitigation plans in place, but at the end of the day, these are recommendations. And I went ahead and I pulled up the state health department here, their benchmarks for the schools, just to kind of give a better look. Let's see if I can actually screen share here. That's always, you'd think with technology now that we'd have this down, but sometimes. Okay, let's see here. Share screen. But just to, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Well, while Danielle's doing that, I know I saw another comment about what is hybrid model schooling, please. Hybrid model, basically in a nutshell, it's, your child coming into on campus maybe twice a week as opposed to 5 days a week, or maybe 3 days out of the week, or maybe coming in for a shorter number of hours as opposed to a full day. And so that hybrid model could really vary from school to school, but it basically means anything less than the 5 days of school.
Right. And that's designed to try to limit the number of students on campus, limit the amount of interactions they're having with each other. And some school districts have like Higley, for instance, they're only doing in person or online. So, it really varies by district. It's very district specific. But this is the kind of the dashboard that we've all been monitoring very closely from the Department of Health Services. So as Carla mentioned, these are the three benchmarks here. There's the less than 100 cases per 100,000 individuals for 2 consecutive weeks, or a decline in cases. So you can see here that as a state that we've met the decline in cases. The one that we tend to have the toughest time with is the percent positivity. So the 2 consecutive weeks with percent positivity below 7%, that's the one that we've seen for quite some time that hasn't been met. And then the COVID-like illness visits in the hospital, that's been met for quite some time. But, when you go to the Maricopa County website, they actually break it down, and Coconino County kind of does this too, because I was up in NAU, so I was looking at their dashboard where they'll break it down by your district. So you can search your zip code, you can search your district, and it will give you those 3 benchmarks for your particular community. And so a lot of school districts are going off of those hyper local numbers as opposed to the numbers for the entire county or for the state. Kind of a thing, because they feel it gives them a better picture of what's happening in their community and therefore what the risk of spread is in their specific community. So that's been a big resource for districts and also for the community to be able to see what's going on around their schools. And again, that update tomorrow from the state health department with the latest benchmarks will be really telling, because I know we have several districts who are going to be looking to those to either say, okay, we're moving ahead with our plans to open September 8th or September 14th, sometime in those next 2 weeks, or they might pull back if they feel like, their numbers aren't where they need to be. So I've been seeing a lot of specific districts here on the comments here. A lot of people asking about Peoria, Washington, Glendale. You can go to abc15.com/schools. We have our searchable database there, and I have been updating it with the plans as we get them. And so that I updated it just as recently as yesterday. So Scottsdale might not be up to date because I don't believe that they made a decision during their meeting last night, but that's a great resource so that you can look at your specific school district. Because we could sit here all day long and talk about what's happening in every single school district. So that I thought was interesting in this previous, I believe it was last week or maybe early this week, the early learners and kind of some of the emphasis in trying to get those preschoolers and kindergartners and first graders back on campus. And we've seen that with some schools already having preschool going, like Mesa has their preschoolers back, Gilbert has their preschoolers back. Madison, just last week was talking about the importance. You looked into, what it is about that age group of why there's such a push to get those little ones back to school sooner.
So that's exactly right. I'm working on a story about that so the kindergartner, the first grader, even second grader. So much of their development as far as speech and language acquisition and reading capabilities really, really builds at that early age. And so many of the syllables, phonics, all of those early learning building tools that kids really build their reading skills upon are really built in that foundation of looking at me pronouncing certain words, breaking down words. And so those sight words that we all know our kindergartners have to learn, in Arizona, there are 88 sight words that a kindergartner should know by the time that they go into first grade. I know some school districts push for those sight words to be at 100 or higher. And if you think about it, those are words that your child and my child and our children will learn by simply looking at us, that. And so I remember my kid's kindergarten teacher doing those words so enunciated and so, marked up. And so that is one of the things that I'm hearing from parents. I'm looking to speak with a developmental pediatrician. And these are, of course, doctors that are not only pediatricians, but they're in charge of how that the developing of the brain really takes off and what is really needed in that 5 to 7 age group. And so we've seen that Kyrene has really talked about these early learners, and we have seen, Danielle, a trend in really allowing these early learners to go back to school as soon as possible, even before your middle school children and your high schoolers. Your high schoolers are, in my humble opinion, are the ones that are, really getting ready for that college age group. And so them doing a hybrid kind of situation or an online learning portal is so much easier, because it really lends itself for what's to come in college. But the little itty bitty ones are the ones that are really learning from being in that in-person setting. So I'm hoping to talk to a doctor to give us a little bit more insight as to those things that I just talked about. But that's what I'm hearing from the kindergarten parents, that one of them is a former teacher. So she's taught and she's now at home with her kindergartner. And she was explaining all of this to me as far as how it's so important for the in-person acquisition of language and reading skills.
Absolutely. And I think it goes into also kind of that social emotional component, and, the little ones maybe needing to be, in that environment, as opposed to learning sitting on a screen. So yeah, I'm interested to hear more on what you find as you dig into that, because it is a trend, as you mentioned, that we're seeing in the districts of really trying to push to get those little ones back to campus. You mentioned high schoolers preparing for college. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on in our universities right now. I was just up at NAU on Monday for the day, spent the day in Flagstaff. And actually our photographer, Danny, he graduated from NAU about 10 years ago. And he said that he was shocked by how quiet the campus was. They're expecting about 16,000 students now back on campus. About 10,000 of them are living on campus. We spoke with students who were excited to be back. We spoke with freshman students who it kind of made me feel for them, because, I remember my first week or two of going to college away from home is all about these big gatherings and meeting as many people as you can and trying to connect, with people and your roommates. And this one young man from Colorado, Gabe, was saying, he's only seen these people on Zoom. And so it's been hard to actually make friends, to actually connect with anybody, to feel involved on campus. And so now being on campus, he was looking forward to actually seeing some of these people in person that he's been seeing on Zoom. But there are also teachers and faculty members there who are not comfortable with bringing 16,000 students back to campus right now. And so that debate and those concerns really the same at all of our universities, I would say. U of A, they have students back. They have students living on campus. They're tracking their COVID data on their own dashboard. So very easy for the public to see what's going on. And then we have ASU right now, which is dealing with 800 or so cases of COVID-19. I know you guys touched on this a little bit in the morning show this morning.
We did. We know that there's roughly about 200 on campus who are quarantining, and then there's another about, I want to say, over 400 that are quarantining also, but they are the off-campus living students. So it's definitely something that we're keeping our eyes on as a news team. We're constantly getting updates from ASU. Just on Friday, the numbers were very different. The numbers were a lot lower, and then over the weekend, those numbers came up drastically, as could be expected. We know that, we've seen some situations at ASU where students are gathering and coming together and maybe not social distancing and not wearing masks. And so ASU is really working hard at trying to get us the latest numbers. We do know that ASU does the saliva testing as well, which is it's done at the Bioscience and Design Institute. And we know that they're going to have a press conference today at 11, so in about 30 minutes. So we're going to tune into that and see if they will talk about maybe added mechanisms that they're going to put in place in order to really help bring those numbers down. We're going to stay on top of that and bring it to you. One other thing that I wanted to bring up, something that I did this morning, was flu and COVID. Yes. We know that Governor Ducey and Dr. Christ had a press conference on Monday, specifically talking about their push and their agenda for really having vaccines out in the community at a very low cost, or sometimes at even no cost to the community, because they don't want to see an uptick in flu cases. They don't want to see, COVID-19 still in the community, and then having those hospital beds, be used up and overwhelm the healthcare system, is what Dr. Christ said to us. So we know that. I want to give a shout out to Mesa Public Schools. They've been working together way before COVID with their fire department and their schools. And they do, Danielle, let me just share with you. I think it's so awesome. They do a whole week where they go from school to school to school, and they do about 1,000 flu shots a day for 4 days. And so they did 4,100 last year. They're hoping to outbeat that number. And I said, how would you do that in the middle of a pandemic where kids are not really at school? They're at home. So they're coming up with really creative ways to make it happen. They're going to have like smaller clinics. So they'll have small clinics, and a lot more of them, of course, with social distancing in mind, with face masks, with all the necessary protocols in place. And they're hoping that they will get to those numbers and even surpass them, even though the kids aren't necessarily right now in the classroom where they could easily, line them up and have, the vaccines go through. They don't really have that option. They have to really get creative and find another way. So for parents out there, there's going to be a free flu vaccine clinic next Wednesday at Superstition Springs Mall from 5 to 7. So if you're in that area, if you're in the East Valley and you're looking for a flu vaccine, that's where you can go.
Yeah, and I know when I spoke with the school nurse who also happened to work in Mesa, she was saying that, it's going to be taxing already with them being so hyper vigilant over any symptom at all, and being concerned about COVID, and flu symptoms are similar to coronavirus, and so I know they're trying to do everything they can. So that's really great that you were able to talk to them, and when you hear the numbers too, I mean, Mesa has 80 plus campuses, and so the idea of going school to school to do all of that, a lot of districts having to get creative for sure. One other thing I wanted to mention real quick about ASU. And again, these are numbers from them. They count their total student body at 74,000 students. And so, when you take 800 cases and put that into the 74,000, they're saying, their percent positivity rate is about 1%. So I think they're not moving to shut down the school just yet. But again, important to also keep in mind of how many students are at ASU, how many faculty are at ASU. I think the last update I saw last week said that their staff percent positivity was at 0.2%. And so just some extra facts and figures to keep in mind, making sure that we're reporting all of our cases that we hear about in context, and everything. But certainly, we've seen other universities, North Carolina, shutting down. Yep, Notre Dame, closing down. And so it'll be interesting to see what ASU ends up doing, because they are so massive and because they are in the heart of Tempe, of a larger community. And same thing with NAU and U of A, but NAU in particular, some of the concerns I heard up there was that Flagstaff is a relatively small community. And so they have one hospital, limited resources. And so there are some concerns there of if the students come and the numbers spike, that they might overwhelm the resources that are already stretched thin in that smaller community. And so certainly so much to keep in mind, as schools are deciding how to reopen, when to reopen, what to do when they have cases. I know that's another big question that everybody has, is what happens if someone on campus gets coronavirus. And that's where we're starting to see those family notification letters going out. But there's just so much wrapped up in school right now, and getting kids back to school and safely keeping kids on campus. And it's tough for everyone involved. I've seen some posts on the side here asking about Phoenix Union District. They were one of the first, Phoenix Union High School District, to basically say, you know what, we're just going to go remote through fall break. We're going to spend our time and resources putting it into remote learning. We're not even going to think about in person until fall break. And so different districts making different decisions based on what's best for their communities.
Mhm. Well, and we know that the online digital platforms, I talked with Avondale Elementary School District a couple of weeks ago, and they said, every day that goes by with digital learning, my teachers, this is Dr. Hargrove, she said, my teachers it's getting better. It's becoming a little bit more of an easier task to get through. I'm not saying that it's the perfect platform by any means, and I'm not endorsing it myself. We're neither, the superintendent said it's not the situation we want to be in. We want to have the kids in the classroom, but given the circumstance that we're in, it is getting better. It is progressing, and our teachers and our students are getting into a routine, into a flow. I can tell you just from the simple fact that my kids have been at home for 3 weeks now. We are certainly making strides. We're getting there. There are still a lot of hiccups. I emailed my daughter's teacher last night and I said, I didn't know that this stuff needed to be turned in, and I'm sorry, I wasn't aware of how. And so I emailed a snapshot of her math homework to her, and I said, I'm sorry, this is 2 days late. She did it, 2 days ago, but I didn't, there's a lot of, it's hard. It's hard for anyone. And so thank goodness she was very responsive and very easy with me. She said, no worries, just get it in. And this is great. But I guess patience is a really big word right now, right, Danielle? Let's all be patient with our teachers. They're doing the best they can under this circumstance. We're doing the best we can. I know being in front of a screen is not necessarily where I want to have my kids all day. And so I know that a lot of us, I've seen the comments from parents saying, I don't want my kid on a screen all day, but at the same time, we do want to send them when we as a family, right? And what works for my family may not necessarily work for the family next door. So being respectful of each other's situation at hand for sure.
Definitely. And I think giving some grace to everybody involved in this, right? The teachers, the school boards who are making these decisions, the parents who are making these decisions, the students who are maybe online learning when they want to be in school. So there's definitely so many different parts to all of this. Carla, I know that you have been talking to some families about how they feel about going back to school, and you're looking to speak with some more, right?
Yes, thank you for reminding me. So we are being tasked with finding students that are getting back to go on the 8th or, the 9th. Anyone who's starting school past the Labor Day holidays, what we're looking at. And I've got 2 families already, but I'm looking for more. There it is, share@abc15.com. If you've got a little one at home who's very vocal and likes to express him or herself, please send them our way. We'd love to do a quick little Zoom interview with them and find out what they're looking forward to. I know my daughter said to me the other day, this is going to be the best day of 2020 for me, Mom, going back to school. And I just thought of it and I thought, oh my goodness. She goes, can you believe I haven't been in school since March? And I was like, that's right. And so they are just, whether you pick to go in person or not, or hybrid, or, stay online. I really respect your wishes and, but at the same time, I know that at our household, I've got one that's just, jumping and, bouncing off the walls, knowing that school is coming. She goes, this is like another first day of school is what she called it. And I'm like, and we're really seeing it like that in a lot of ways. It is almost like another first day of school, because so much of first day of school is seeing your friends that you haven't seen in a while. Right. I mean, my daughters haven't seen friends in at least 6 months. So this is really an important part for them. Maybe for us as adults, since we keep on working and I keep on going out into the community, it may not seem like a deal, but for them, this for those who are going back, it could be huge. So if you want to share those stories with us, we'd love to do a quick little Zoom interview with your son and daughter.
Yeah, and we tried to make a point to hear from the kids too, because so often we speak with the superintendents or the school organizations or parents, and those are all vital pieces. But at the end of the day, this really impacts students. I mean, we speak with teachers as well, as folks who are in the classroom with these students, and just the impact it has on them and the toll it takes on them. And so we love hearing from kiddos on how they're feeling about everything. Real quick here, as we kind of go into this final stretch here, just a couple of things to watch for in the next few days. I know we talked about this at the very beginning, but that was 35 minutes ago, and I'm sure we have several people tuning in a little more now. Tonight, Chandler Unified School District, they're going to be holding a special meeting. They'll be talking about whether they move forward with their in-person learning plans. Tomorrow, we get the updated health benchmarks from the state and also from the county, or Maricopa County. That will be very telling, as the state is already saying that more counties, including Pima and Maricopa, could qualify for that hybrid model. And then also when the Maricopa County benchmarks are released, a lot of districts, like I know Mesa for sure, several of the districts going back on the 8th will be looking at that report to say, okay, we're good, let's keep going with our plans, or let's hold back and adjust. So that's really big. Next Monday, we have, or not Monday because that's Labor Day, but I believe next week, Mesa will be meeting again to take the data that we see tomorrow and to make a choice if they're going to go forward with their modified in-person learning plan for September 14th. And of course, that's significant because they're the largest district in the state with 60,000 plus students and 10,000 plus faculty and staff. So those are the big things that I know we'll be paying close attention to as far as, on the detailed level and logistics, and we'll continue to update abc15.com/schools. Carla, what else are you watching here in this next week or so, these next couple of weeks?
Well, I don't know. Did you mention Gilbert? Gilbert's also doing hybrid, just in case anyone missed that. I know they're starting hybrid on Tuesday. We mentioned the flu shots as well. And some comments that came up earlier about the flu shots. Somebody wrote, I hope that it's with parental, approval and authorizing that. And yes, for sure. And no one's getting a flu shot without obviously parent consent. One thing that I want to add to the flu shot clinic on next Wednesday is they will do any shots that are needed in order for your child to stay immunized. So we're not just talking flu shots, they're talking MMR, they're talking rotavirus flu shots, they're talking any of those necessary shots that really allow your child to go into school. We know that there's another one that they get right in between 5th and 6th grade. There's obviously the ones that are right before kinder. And so they are going to be keeping tabs with me and keeping me posted as to more clinics that will come about. This is in the East Valley. But if anybody's out in the West Valley and they know about shots or, clinics or immunization clinics out in the West Valley, also send them to that share at ABC 15, because we'd love to go out to the West Valley as well and get the word out. Again, this is nothing having to really do with COVID-19, but the nurse who I spoke with, Nadine Miller, she said, you don't want to have two things contract two things at the same time. The least thing that we want to see is a child with the flu and then with COVID at the same time. That would not be a good situation at all. So she said, when there's a vaccine for the flu, let's get the flu done and dealt with. Let's get that vaccine going. And then hopefully whenever a COVID-19 vaccine comes through, hopefully in the near future, then we can take care of that. But in the meantime, we want to really be up to date on all of the other immunizations that are necessary. So anyway, just trying to do my due diligence of keeping the community informed and keeping our kids safe. And so that's what's happening this coming Wednesday, Superstition Springs Mall from 5 to 7, no appointment necessary, and it's from 5 to 7 o'clock in the evening.
Excellent. And then one other big development that we haven't mentioned yet. We talked last week about there was some, let's see, I have an echo going. I apologize for that. I think there was some concern being raised about the nutrition services, and the USDA had basically started its summer meal program early to accommodate during the school closures, and there was some concern that that wasn't going to keep going and that students were not accessing meals like they should be because they're not on campus to get those free or reduced lunches. And we did hear just a few days ago that the USDA did extend their free meals for kids through the end of the year. So through December 31st, 2020. So hopefully that will be a big help as well for school districts districts as they continue trying to meet all the needs, right? Not just academic, but also social services and health services and nutrition services and everything that goes along with that. And Carla, you mentioned the immunizations. That was something I know we've been speaking with the wonderful nurses over at Mesa. As the nurses prepare to have more students on campus, they said parents can really help make their jobs a little easier by making sure you're submitting all the paperwork you need to the nurse's office with your, if your kiddo has an underlying condition or if they have medication or if they, things that they need on campus, and making sure those immunizations are up to date, and just to try to cut down on the amount of follow-up that the nurses are going to have to do, or if they present with a certain symptom where they can easily find, oh, okay, that's related to XYZ. We don't need to send that child home to quarantine for 14 days. So just kind of a little extra reminder to make sure, I know we all have so many things going on, but just to make sure that paperwork and all that stuff is up to date.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what I heard from them as well, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it looks like we are almost out of time. Again, like I always say, Carla and I could sit here all day, which I wouldn't necessarily mind because it would mean I'd get to see you more.
I know. Same here.
Yeah. But, we just want to thank all of you on Facebook again for, being with us, for contributing to the conversation, and for continuing to voice your concerns, and also to share stories of positivity and hope and things that are going well for you and your family. We really appreciate you letting us help support you and your family through this journey. So stay with ABC15, abc15.com, our free mobile app. And Carla and I, we will see you back here next Wednesday for this. We call it our Reporter's Notebook, where we can chat all about everything happening in education. The website down below, abc15.com/schools. And Carla, any final words of wisdom before we sign off for today?
Well, for those who have decided to send their kids back to school next week, this is that weekend right before. I'm wishing you the very best, wishing the kids the very best, a very successful learning opportunity to all. And if you decide to keep them at home and have them stay home with you, I wish you continued success in what you've already started, because we're all in this together, right? We're all coming together as one. We're teachers, we're parents, we're school administrators, and we will get through this. We will get through this, and I wish you, in whatever platform your child is on, the very best.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, and we will see you right back here next week.